Hi guys, Alex here from ALEXEIR Studios. Today we're recreating the cursed, kind of burnt into skin symbols appearing on the face effect from the 2017 film The Mummy.
Is it true you went to school with skinny but pretty boys, totally tattooed all over the body, drugs taken, singing Miss Wine in the house?
I did, yeah.
This is actually the second part of the tutorial, and in the first part we recreated this splitting double iris effect from the movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely make sure to check it out, the link will be in the description. But if you're here just for the symbols, that's fine too. And before we jump into After Effects, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell. I just always keep messing up on this part, I don't know why. This really helps us grow and keeps the tutorials coming. Also, like the video and maybe leave a comment down below. Okay, second part, let's go. So for the symbols effect, I really only have one tip. In my case, I didn't even need to do that because I have a close-up shot, so there's enough detail for me to track. But if you're working on a shot where you have your full face visible or it's a little bit further away, then what you can do is you can think about where you want to place symbols in advance, and you can place small tracking markers on those areas. Make sure that the tracking markers are white or black so that there's more contrast, and this way you will later be able to track those areas and get a detailed track. And you can also remove the markers themselves using the spot clone tracker effect. Okay, before we get to creating symbols, this is after all the continuation of the tutorial where we worked on the double iris effect. So before we get to creating symbols, we first need to render our double iris effect that we created in the previous tutorial. And if you have worked on the double iris effect, I really recommend exporting it separately, because with all the effects that we have applied, it's really going to slow down the preview time because of all the graphics. So it's just gonna be easier if you render it and then work on the symbols separately in a new project. Just make sure that you render the clip in a lossless format. I recommend QuickTime, and in format options you can change the video codec to Apple ProRes 4444. Great, now we can open a new project and work on the symbols. So first I will need to track the areas we will be applying the symbols to, and I will do that using the spot clone tracker effect from Red Giant. If you don't have it, then just use the built-in tracker from After Effects. I'm going to set spot opacity to 0, change the overlay setting to faster tracking, adjust the size of the tracker, and I will just track the area under the right eye. I will then change the clone from setting to explicitly and track the area under the left eye this time. You can rename the spot clone tracker effect to under eye so that it's easier to navigate, because I will then add a second spot clone tracker effect, set spot opacity to 0 again, change overlay setting to faster tracking, increase the size of the tracker, and this time I will track the forehead. We will be creating the symbols themselves using text instead of images. We actually have a very similar tutorial released, but in that tutorial we're creating sort of ancient magic runes appearing on skin, and they're glowing. It's more of a magical kind of effect. Whereas this time, we're trying to make the symbols look like they are kind of burnt into the skin, like they are cursed and evil. But the logic is kind of the same. So if you want, you can check out that tutorial as well. That tutorial is a lot more complicated. But yeah, basically what we did is we went online and we found a font that consists only of these symbols. I thought they looked cursed enough for this, so I really liked the look of those symbols. By the way, font links, 4K raw clip, After Effects project file, and any assets we use are going to be linked down below in our Patreon. So on our Patreon, you can literally download the 4K raw clip and practice along using the same footage. You can also download the After Effects project file that we are working on right now, and you can see everything we did. The font is also going to be downloadable there. Okay, so here's the way this is going to work. On the font website, you can literally see which letter corresponds with which symbol. So for example, if you click S on your keyboard, you get this A kind of cursed looking symbol, and same logic for any other letter or number. So looking at the website, you're just going to select all the symbols you like and want to have in your clip, and then you're going to type them in After Effects using the text tool. Just make sure that you type each symbol onto a separate layer, not onto one. And of course, when you type them, select the font that you're going to be using. For now, you can just type and position them anywhere in the clip. We just need to have all the symbols we like in the shot somewhere in the composition. Then you can just take them from the bunch and kind of roughly position where you want the symbols to be. I wanted to have 2 symbols under each eye and like 9 symbols on the forehead in the lines of 3. I am then going to open up the position parameter for all symbol layers, and I am going to go through each of the layers and parent them to the spot clone tracker effect. And here you're supposed to parent each symbol to the spot clone tracker that tracked that area. So for example, if the 2 symbols under the right eye were tracked using the spot center, I will then parent those 2 symbols to spot center. Following the same logic, 2 symbols under the left eye I will be parenting to clone from. And the forehead symbols I will be parenting to the second spot clone tracker effect. You can then click A on the keyboard and open up the anchor point settings for all the symbols. And using anchor point, you can then put the symbols back to where you positioned them previously. Now you can adjust the size and rotation of each symbol. You can also flip them if you want. Basically just position them where you want them to actually be and tilt them any way you want. Just create a composition of the symbols that you like. I noticed that in my clip, the camera actually moves a little bit closer towards the end. So I opened up the scale parameter on all layers, set the keyframe on the last frame, went to the beginning and just made them a little bit smaller. The symbols are going to have a transition and they're going to appear out of nowhere. So the adjustments I'm making on the scale parameter, they are just rough and they don't have to be very precise. Besides, I'm not changing them too much. And this is individual for every clip because in your case, you might not need to adjust the scale. Okay, now we have like 13 symbol layers and we're going to be working on the look of each group now. So I kind of want to have them together in the same pre-comps. We are going to create 3 pre-comps, one right under eye pre-comp, one left under eye pre-comp, and one forehead pre-comp. But there's one problem. We parented each symbol to the spot clone tracker effect, meaning we can't just select the symbols and pre-compose them because we will lose the tracking data. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate the raw clip on which the spot clone tracker effect is applied. We're going to turn off its visibility, and then we're going to select the 2 right under eye symbols, and we're going to pre-compose them with the hidden raw clip. And ta-da, now we have a pre-comp, and we don't lose the tracking data. We're going to duplicate the raw clip again, hide its visibility, pre-compose it with the left under eye symbols, and we're going to duplicate and hide the raw clip again, and then pre-compose it with all the remaining symbols. You can then rename the pre-comps. Okay, now we're going to change the shape of the symbols. We're going to reshape them. So click on the right side pre-comp and apply a liquefy effect. I paused at the end of the clip because this is where we're going to see the final effect. So on there, I'm going to alt-click the distortion mesh offset parameter, and I'm going to parent it to spot center. I am then going to go to left side pre-comp, apply liquefy, and I will also alt-click distortion mesh offset parameter and parent it to clone from this time. Same with the forehead pre-comp, apply the liquefy effect, alt-click distortion mesh offset, and parent it to the second spot clone tracker effect. This way we make sure that whatever adjustments we're making to the liquefy effect are sticking to the track. So using the warp tool in liquefy, you can now reshape the symbols and make them look like anything you want. I'm sort of just tilting them according to the shape of the cheeks and making sure that they look more realistic and blended into the shot. I'm giving them more of a 3D kind of look, as if they're actually on the cheek. Same thing for the forehead symbols. I'm also tilting them and giving them a more 3D kind of look, as if there's kind of a bump to follow the forehead shape. You can always reposition the symbols and you can always adjust the liquefy settings. Great, so now we can actually start working on the look of the symbols. I am first going to apply a fill effect onto the right side pre-comp, and I'm going to sample the color from some kind of a dark point in the shot. I chose the eyelash area. We now have this kind of dark brown color, but make sure to pick the color from somewhere close to the area you're editing, somewhere from the shadows. Using Ctrl-C on my keyboard, I then copied the fill effect, and using Ctrl-V, I simply just pasted it onto left side and forehead pre-comps. Okay, so I now need to pre-compose each pre-comp again. So duplicate the raw clip, hide it, pre-compose it with the right side pre-comp, and do the same thing for left side and forehead pre-comps. You can rename them back to right side, left side, and forehead. We are now going to apply a fastbox blur effect to the right side pre-comp. I set it to something like 12, and then I applied a set matte effect. I then applied a second fastbox blur effect, and then I kind of just played around with both fastbox blur effect settings. I ended up leaving the first one on 14 and the second one on 5. I then changed the blending mode of the layer to soft light, duplicated it, and changed the blending mode to overlay. On the bottom layer, I increased the blur radius setting so that it's more like a shadow. I then duplicated the bottom layer again, increased the blur radius even more. Onto the overlay layer, I then added a fill effect again, changed the color to completely black, moved it to the top. And if you double click on the fill effect, you can then change the opacity of the effect in compositing options. I lowered it to 38. And then I lowered the opacity of the layer to 85%. I then added a roughen edges effect, changed the edge type to spiky, turned off the rest of the effects, and I just played around with the settings until I got this kind of detail edge effect. I turned all the effects back on, and I really liked the edge kind of shape it gave me. I then actually moved the roughen edges effect after set matte, changed the settings a little bit, and then decreased the opacity of roughen edges effect to something like 50. What I did next is I selected all the effects on the right side pre-comp, clicked Ctrl-C to copy them, and using Ctrl-V, I pasted them onto the left side pre-comp. Just make sure that in Set Matte, you change the Take Matte from layer 2 instead of the previous one. It was set to. Basically just change it to the same layer you're working on right now. Change the blending mode to Overlay. Next, I went to the right side pre-comp's soft light layer, copied all the effects from there. Then I duplicated the left side pre-comp, put it under, set it to soft light. I deleted all the effects from it. And then using Ctrl-V, I just pasted the effects onto it. Also make sure to change Set Matte to the main left side layer. I then duplicated the soft light layer again and simply changed the fastbox blur setting to 16. And now we're going to copy all the effects from the right side overlay layer again, and we're going to paste them onto the forehead pre-comp. So here you can actually blur them out a lot more, but this really depends on your clip and the amount of blur in your shot. In my case, the forehead is a lot blurrier than the rest of the footage, so I needed to really increase the blur. Change the blending mode to overlay also, duplicate the layer, change it to soft light, and simply copy the effects from the right side pre-comp soft light layer. Delete all the effects on the forehead layer and paste the effects that you copied. Duplicate the soft light layer again, and just make sure that on the bottom soft light layer the blur settings are 16, and in the top soft light layer they are a little bit higher, 25 in my case. But since this area is a lot blurrier, we're going to need to change the fastbox blur settings on the soft light layer as well. So I'm just playing around with the blur settings and making sure that I like the look that I'm getting. You can also play around with the opacity settings. So in this step, really make sure that you're satisfied with the look. So feel free to go back and forth and adjust opacity settings, fastbox blur settings, like amounts of blur and everything. Just make sure that everything looks good to you before moving on to the next step. And we only have one more final step left, which is we need to create the transition. We need to make symbols appear out of nowhere. So go to Layer, New, Solid, and create a solid layer. Right away, I'm just going to open up the position property. going to parent the solid layer to spot center. Turn the solid layer on, and you need to make sure that the solid fills the entire shot. This is really important. In my case it didn't, so I opened up the scale parameter and increased the scale until the solid filled the entire composition. You then need to create some masks for each symbol. I wanted to create circle masks, and I did that using the ellipse tool. It's right next to the pen tool. So just create a small circle mask for each symbol. For the forehead symbols, I'm just going to create one circle mask in the middle. Now open up the mask settings and activate the keyframes on mask expansion on the frame where you want the symbols to start appearing, when you want the transition to start. Then look through the clip and find a frame where you want the transition to end. Also set the keyframe there. Now go back to the start keyframe, and on each mask lower the mask expansion settings until it disappears. Then go to the end keyframe, and this time expand the mask enough so that it fills the entire symbol. Once you do that, apply a roughen edges effect to the layer, change the edge type to spiky, and just play around with the settings until you get the look that you want. I'm going for this detail edge kind of look, and I'm increasing the complexity of the edges. I then increased the mask feathers for each mask. This is also going to be individual for every clip. And once I've done that, I then alt-clicked on the evolution and entered the expression. The expression is time symbol 200. You can see it on the screen. And this expression just kind of animates the edges. This way they are now moving, and this will really just make the transition cooler. I then selected all the symbol pre-comps, all of them including the shadows. And then I changed their track matte to the solid layer. And now the transition is actually working. I then applied a fastbox blur to the solid layer and set the blur to something like 4. I then selected all the mask keyframes on the solid layer, and I clicked F9 on the keyboard. What this did is it enabled the easy ease parameter, and this will just make the symbols appear smoother and more realistic. You can then play through the clip and see if you like the transition. Make sure that you like the way everything appears, and if not, adjust the keyframes. So you can move them back and forth in the shot, maybe move them further, maybe move them to the start of the composition, maybe make the transition longer, basically just move the keyframes until you're satisfied with the transition. I also increased the fastbox blur to 10. And I also moved the keyframes some more. I was really going back and forth with the keyframes, and it's really important that you mess around with this enough, because the way your transition is going to appear really depends on how the keyframes are positioned. So play around with the keyframes and then with mask settings in general. You can adjust mask feathers and other things. And once you do that, the transition is all complete. I then started on the color grading process. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you haven't seen part 1, make sure to click the link in the description and check it out. If you recreate any of our effects in your projects and post them, make sure to tag us or send them to us, because we would love to check them out. We would love to see your work. By the way, the person playing the mummy in the video is my friend Megan. Megan is a professional actress and she's really talented. I will leave all her links down below. And again, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, click on the notification bell so that you don't miss any of the future uploads, and comment. Feel free to leave any suggestions down below as well. And I really hope to see you in the next video.